to simplify the process of a business operation. An activity diagram illustrates the dynamic nature of the system by modeling the flow of control from one activity to the other activity. Activity diagrams are used to, of course, model the workflow. That's why it's called a flow chart, or the business process and the internal operations, okay? So we already talked about the process flow diagram when we were talking about session number 5, slide number session number 5, right? Remember we did the process flow diagram for an internal transfer versus an external transfer from the fund transfer FRD. Everybody remember that? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was the last diagram on slide session number 5, right? The process flow diagram. So the process flow diagram, aka activity diagram, aka flow chart, are the same thing. So if you want to create this diagram in, say, Visio, you have to look for a flow chart. In Visio, it is referred to as a flow chart. Okay. So there are actually two different notations. There is an older notation, and of course, there is the newer notation. Newer notation we already covered when we covered the last diagram in session number 5, right? So that was the newer notation. Here we also have the older notation. Why do we cover the older notation? Because sometimes you wind up doing document analysis and you're looking at documents that belong to, systems and stuff which are old, and they might be using these symbols or these notations for that. So for example, in the older notation, the activity itself was represented with an oval rectangle, this shape, right? In the newer notation, this shape represents what? Anybody know? Remember? This shape in the newer representation, a what? Start and a end. Yes? All right. In the older notation, it was an activity. A filled circle followed by an arrow represents the initial starting point. So in the older notation, a solid circle with a line coming out represented the start. Of course, in the newer notation, it is this symbol, this rectangle with curved corners or oval rectangle that represents the start and the finish. The older notation, the final state, was represented by an arrow pointed towards a full circle nested in another circle. This represented the final state. So this was the symbol for the end. All right. The action remains the same. The action is represented by an arrow between the two actions, right? So you have activity, the arrow in between the two activities shows the direction of the flow. There are two different ways of representing a decision. You may have each variant path written on each of the activity, and you show the divergence using a small diamond, right? The condition of the divergence is written on each path of the divergence. So this has not changed. It is the same in the older notation. It is the same in the newer notation. Here's the example. So you have activity number 1, which is hitting a diamond, and then you have two conditions on each arm. So if the top condition is met, you would go to the activity on the right. If the bottom condition is being met, then you go to the bottom activity. Clear? Diamond represents the decision box. It is used for validation, for checks, right? For instance, here's another example of that. System will calculate the total cost, and then you come up with a diamond, right? And it says if the cost is less than $50, then the system will go ahead and charge the customer's account. If the cost is greater than or equal to $50, then the system will need to get authorization. Any questions on the diagram? Okay. So this is another thing we haven't really talked a lot about, which is called concurrent paths. So concurrent paths are paths that run at the same time in two different paths and then can come together. We use what we call a synchronization bar. The synchronization bar will help the illustration between the parallel paths. The synchronization bar can either be a forking or a joining bar. Okay, so here's an example. You have activity number 1 reaching the synchronization bar, and then you have two activities running in parallel, activity number 1 and activity number 2, right, in parallel. And then you have another synchronization bar on the bottom that is going to activity number 4. So basically, you have activity 1 that gets split into 2. So this synchronization bar is what we call a forking bar, right? One activity is getting split into 2 activities. And both those activities 2 and 3 are running in parallel. So both must complete, meaning activity number 2 and activity number 3 must complete for you to go to activity number 4. And the transitional bar here, this is the joining because you're joining 2 activities into one. So the top one is a forking, bottom one is a joining. Okay, any questions here?
Sir, can you give us the example, like in this one, like how this work? If it is
Good
a
morning,
login.
Uzair.
Yes, sir, I was in the restroom, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
examples are coming ahead
Okay, thank you.
right here. Okay, so you have a starting symbol, then you have your first activity is you receive an order, then there's a synchronization path, and then there are 2 activities running in parallel. You have the order fulfillment process happening in parallel of the invoicing process. So let's look at the one on the left, which is order fulfillment. So when you try to fill the order, you come to a decision box, and then there are 2 paths leading out of the decision box. Is this a rush order or is it else, meaning other? If it happens to be a rush order, you go to overnight delivery. If it is other, then you go to a regular delivery. And then when the delivery has been completed, you come and you wait. You wait for the other side to complete also. And the other side is the invoicing process. So once the order is received, while we're fulfilling the order, we will also send the invoice out to the client. And then once the payment has been received from the client and say the shipment has been sent, so both activities have been completed, then the order will go to close status. Okay? And this is the end symbol. Got it, is that?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. The next one is signaling. Now, I've never ever used signaling. It's in the slide, so I'll talk about it, but we typically don't use it, right? A signaling is an activity that can generate a signal which can result in another activity. Symbol for sending a signal is convex polygon. The symbol for receiving the signal would be a concave polygon. It looks like this, okay? So you have the process which is going to this, convex polygon. So convex polygon represents the output event, and the concave polygon represents the input event. So this is output event, this is input event, and the connectivity between the two is represented with a broken arrow like that. Okay, typically we will just use a process box and say, this system sends an order, and the other system will put another process box to represent the system receives the order. And we typically don't use this kind of symbols for it. We just use regular activity boxes, process boxes. Okay.
Which one is the output and input?
Convex polygon, this one is the output, this one is the input.
Oh,
Look at the arrow, which way it's going. So which one do you think is the output?
the left one.
Correct. You're killing me, Uzair. All right. Now let's talk about swim lanes. So swim lanes is something we do a lot. So we can create any kind of diagram from a swim lane diagram. So a swim lane is nothing but a visual region in the activity diagram that indicates the elements that are responsible for the actions stated within the region. Okay. Basically, it distinguishes each activity being performed by each actor. So here is an example of a swim lane diagram, and swim lane diagrams can be both vertical or horizontal. This is a vertical swim lane, and you can see there are 3 swim lanes here. The first lane belongs to the customer, the second lane belongs to the sales, and the third lane belongs to a stockroom. So basically, the customer will be doing the following activities. He will request a service. He's going to go ahead and pay for the item, and he will be collecting the order. These are 3 functions that are being done by the customer. And once the customer places a request, that request flows into the sales. So sales is responsible for taking the order, and sales is responsible for delivering the order. And once sales receives the order, they push the order forward to the stockroom. And stockroom is basically involved in fulfilling the order. So once stockroom completes the order comes back to the sales. Sales will verify if the customer had made the payment. If the payment has been verified, then the sales department will go ahead and it will send the order out, and then the customer will receive or collect the order. So this is a process flow diagram which has been modified to a swim lane having 3 vertical swim lanes. Clear? Here is another example of another swim lane. Here it's again 3 swim lanes, right? And again, they are vertical swim lanes, so they run up and down, right? The first swim lane belongs to the project manager. The second swim lane is the project management system. The third one belongs to the printer, right? So the process begins by the project manager entering some data for a particular report criteria. So he's going to go ahead and he'll select a report, and for that report, he will select certain report criteria. So imagine he was printing his, um, quarterly statement, his sales figures for the quarter or a comparison report. Then he has to select, for which regions he wants it, for which quarters he wants the comparison done, what type of report he needs to be printing, right? After he selects all of that data, then that information will go to the project management system. Project management system will start to gather that information which is required for that particular report. And once it gathers the data that is required for that report, it will send the data in the report to the printer. Printer is of course having 2 parallel jobs running in, so it's waiting for the print information to come from the project management system. It is also monitoring for other print requests, right? Once the printer prints the report, that report comes back to the project manager, and then you see a diamond here for decision. If there are no more print requests or no need for no more reports, that ends the process. But if the project manager would like to print more reports, then again, the process will begin by him selecting the reports and entering the data, and the process runs it through again. So again, another swim lane diagram. It has been swim laning the process flow diagram. Any questions?
No.
Okay. Next one is a sequence diagram. So UML, Unified Modeling Language, actually has 2 different flavors. They have behavioral UML, right, which the BA is more involved in. Behavioral UML is basically UML diagrams that represent the behavior of the system. So process flow diagram, use case diagram, state diagrams, these are all behavioral UML. The other type of UML is called static structural UML. And static structural UML is more design related. Okay. And this is an example of a static structural UML, which is a sequence diagram. So sequence diagram is an interaction diagram that shows how the process will operate with one another and what is their particular order. A sequence diagram will show the objects interaction arranged in a time sequence. It will depict the objects and the classes. As soon as you see objects and classes, we are now talking about OOAD. What is OOAD? OOAD stands for Object Oriented Analysis and Design. In other words, the design cycle. It will involve basically the scenarios and the sequence of messages which are being exchanged between the objects which are needed to carry out the functionality of the scenario. The sequence diagram, of course, are typically associated with use case realization, right, in a logical view, and the system under development. Sequence diagrams are sometimes also called event diagrams or event scenarios. So sequence diagrams you will typically find in the design stage. And what is the document of the design stage? The TDD, the technical design documents. Sequence diagrams are found in the TDD. And who's the author of the TDD? The tech lead.
Technology had it. Yeah.
Not technology head, tech leads. All right. Tech head is in charge of the whole damn development. He's not going to be putting DDDs together. He's the technology head. Here is an example of what a sequence diagram looks like. So you see these are the objects on the top, right? And these are the different functionalities that are taking place and the order of the functionality. So believe it or not, this is the sequence diagram of actually this process flow diagram. So this is the process flow diagram right here. It's the same sales order system, right? And this was the sequence diagram of the same. Where will we find this? TDD, technical design document. All right. Next is a state diagram. So state diagram is again another behavioral UML diagram. State diagram is a type of diagram used in computer science and related fields to describe the behavior of the system. State diagrams requires that the system that is being described is composed of a finite number of states. Sometimes that is indeed the case, while at other times it is a reasonable abstraction. So you should have a finite number of states. Many forms of the state diagram will exist, which will slightly differ from their schematics. So this is, again, it takes the principles from the process flow, but it is done in a state function. So this is actually the state diagram for, believe it or not, a washing machine. A washing machine. So here the process begins. So you see the solid circle, right? So the very first thing that will happen is that the user will be selecting the wash program. And you can see here it says the user is able to change the wash program at the beginning. After he has selected the wash program, he's going to go ahead and he's going to push the start wash button. Once he presses the start wash button, that is where the machine will transition to the very first state. So this is a state box here. The name of the state is on the top half, and the function that is occurring in that state is on the bottom half. So the very first state that the machine transitions to is called filling reservoir. And what is the machine doing? It is filling the reservoir with the water. Okay. Now on the left side here, you also see a call out. This sticky pad looking thing is a call out. A call out is used to basically provide additional information to any process box. In this case, it is for a state box. So it says that the reservoir door may be open while filling the water so that the close may be loaded. But once the wash starts, an open reservoir door will go ahead and stop the washer. This is a top loader, right? How many of you have actually seen top loaders? You know, this is a safety feature, right? They have that agitator in the middle of the washing machine, in the middle of the drum, that goes left, right, left, right, left, right, right, and it moves the clothes around. And you don't want a kid to come and put his hand in there, right? He can get really hurt. So as a safety feature, if you open the lid of the washing machine automatically cuts off, right? How many of you have actually used a top loader?
Yes, I use it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what it is. All right. So once the reservoir is full right here, right, that's where the machine will go to the washing state, which is this whole box represents the washing cycle. Okay. So the very first thing happens is there's a diamond. So this is a decision happening. And the diamond is for which particular program did the user select. So if he selected normal cycle or permanent press, you would go to the right side. But if he selected delicates, you would go down. Everybody see that? So this machine actually has three different cycles. It can be running on a regular cycle or normal cycle. It may be running on a permanent press cycle, or it may be having a delicate cycle. Everybody clear? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if, let's say, the program was normal or permanent press, the machine would have transitioned from filling reservoir state to high agitation wash. That's the name of the state. And what is the machine doing? It is spinning the agitator at full speed. Everybody see that, or should I make it a little bit bigger? How's it now?
Better, yeah.
Okay. When the machine has completed the high agitation wash, right here, then the machine will transition to the low agitation wash. And that is another state where the machine will spin the agitator at the half speed. This is the same place the machine would have gone directly to if the program cycle was delicates. Everybody see that? Yes.
Yes, sir.
When the low agitation wash is done, the machine transitions to emptying reservoir state where the machine will empty the water from the reservoir. And once the water has been emptied, there are actually two lines coming out of this box. So there is one on the bottom that says empty, rinsed equals true. And the other line, which is coming to the right, has also empty, but the rinse is equal to false. So at this stage, what do you think the rinse is equal to? True or false? Have we rinsed already or no? Have we rinsed the clothes?
No.
No. So the rinse indicator will be false, right?
Yes.
And the machine will transition to filling reservoir state, where the machine will fill the reservoir with water. When the water is full, the machine will now go to rinsing state, where the machine will spin the agitator at half the speed. And when it exits the rinsing state, it flips the rinse indicator to
True.
true. When it's done, you will go back to emptying reservoir, correct? Where you will now empty the water from the reservoir again. This time, once the water has been emptied, what is our rinse indicator set to?
Yeah, true.
It's true. So you go down, which
Yes.
is a diamond. Again, another decision, right? What is the decision? Is the program delicates or permanent press, or is the program normal? So normal program cycles will go to a high spin dry, where the machine will spin the reservoir, the drum, at full speed, while delicates and permanent press close will go to a low spin dry because you don't want to damage the close, and it will spin the reservoir at half the speed. Once that is done, your washing is complete and the machine goes to the last state, which is washing complete, and the machine will sound the buzzer for 3
Three.
seconds. Okay. So we had said that, in a state diagram, the machine should have a finite number of states, right? So this particular machine has how many states? The first state would be filling reservoir, correct?
Yes.
Then you have number two is a high agitation wash. Number three is a low agitation
No
wash.
education.
Four is emptying reservoir. We don't count filling reservoir again because we have already counted that, right? So the fifth state would be rinsing, correct?
Yes.
The sixth state could be high spin. Seventh is low spin. And the eighth unique state would be washing complete, right? So this diagram basically identifies the number of states and identifies how the machine will transition from each state to each state. Everybody clear?
Yes.
Any questions? Okay. So the last diagram we want to talk about is the class diagram. Class diagram, again, in the UML, is a type of static structural diagram that describes all the structures of a system by showing the system's classes, their attributes, operations, as well as the relationship between the objects. Okay, as I said, you start talking about classes, you start talking about objects, you are talking about OOAD, design stage, object oriented analysis and design. This is typically created by the developers and used in programming. So you will find the class diagram in which document? In the
Design.
TDD, technical design document. What does it look like? It looks like this. So each one of these boxes is an object. So for example, the top box here, this is a user object. So the name of the object comes on the top. The middle half of the box represents what is the data in this particular object. So this particular object has three data elements. What are they? They are the user ID. And what is the data type? It is a
String.
string. Then you have the password, which is also a string, and you have a login status, which is also a string. Everybody remember what a string was? It's everything, right? It's alphanumeric, special character, everything is included in string. Remember when
Yes,
we
sir.
did data analysis? And the last section of this box represents the class. In other words, what is the function that will be needing this particular object? And the function is verify login. Don't we need these things to verify the login? Do we need the user ID?
Yes.
Do we need the password?
Yes.
Do we need the login status?
Yes.
We need all three, right? To do the verify login function. Agreed? Let's look at another object. The other object that's here is the customer object. So again, in the customer object, you have customer name, which is a string, address string, email string, phone number, which is a integer, right? Integer are only numbers. You have credit card info, which is string, and you have shipping information, which is a string. Everybody see that? What are all the classes that are being used for this? You have the register, login, update the profile, or search. These all will be using this particular object. Any questions? Again, where will I find this diagram? Where will I find this diagram?
TDD.
Yes, sir. TDD.
PDD. Okay. And that completes your UML. So the most important three diagrams that you really need to know is, of course, you need to know process flow diagram, which is also known as a activity diagram or a flow chart. Write these three names down, same diagram. The other one, of course, is the use case diagram, right? And the final diagram that we talked about was the data flow diagram, also known as a interface diagram, also known as a ER diagram. What did the ER stand for?
And relationship.
Entity relationship, right? Or it may be referred to as a content or a context diagram, right? So those diagrams you have studied, these ones you have looked at, right? Any questions on the UML diagrams? You will more than likely be using Visio to make them. Any questions? All right. So let's get to the last session, which is session number 10. All right. So session number 10 starts to talk about testing, stuff that we have already talked about testing. This is the last set of slides before we go into the actual walkthroughs, and the actual walkthroughs we'll be doing next week. Okay, so let's have a look at this. This is session number 10, and we start off by talking about the different environments of testing, right? And we talked about these, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, whenever we did. So the very first environment is called the local environment. The local environment is the actual developers or the coders machine, right? That's where the code itself is being generated, it's being written. And of course, the very first level of testing, which is unit testing, will be done by the developer himself, more than likely on his local machine. Clear? What's another name for unit testing? What's another name for unit testing?
Whitebox.
White
Whitebox.
box. Yeah.
Whitebox. Then once the developers will go ahead and they will integrate that code, then we will go ahead and we will release the integrated code in the dev environment. What does dev stand for?
Development.
Development environment. But this is the integrated environment. So this is development server probably. All right. This is the very first of the integrated environment, which is being used for development testing. And what is the cycle called for development testing? What is the cycle called? DIT. What did DIT stand for? Everybody's forgot. Development integrated testing may also be referred to as UIT. UIT stands for Unit Integrated Testing. Come on, guys, you're damn business analysts. You should be able to figure that one out, right? And what is the type of testing that is being done as part of DIT, UIT? What type of testing? That was the name of the cycle, DIT, UIT. What is the type of testing? Come on, guys, you should remember this.
Functional.
Functional testing, good. And another name for functional testing is?
Black box.
Black box. Everybody clear? Once you have successfully completed the testing in development, right? Now the code will be migrated to the next environment, which is IST, also commonly known as QA, right? IST stands for, of course, Integrated System Testing. QA stands for? QA stands for?
Quality assurance.
Quality assurance, right? So quality assurance is also another functional testing environment. Got it? Once QA completes it successfully, they will promote the code to the UAT environment where the user acceptance testing is occurring. And what type of testing is this? Again, what type of testing?
Black box.
Functional testing, also known as
Black box.
black box. Got it? Once UAT, the users themselves certify the code, now you can promote the code to the actual production environments. And you may have two production environments. The primary production, of course, is production itself. That's where the code will go live. This is the environment where the end users will be accessing the application. And in many cases, we also have a secondary production environment, which is called COB, COB. COB stands for continuation of business, right? So God forbid if your primary environment goes down, we move everybody to the secondary. That is also sometimes referred to as the disaster recovery environment. COB environment or disaster recovery. So God forbid your main servers went down because of a storm. Sandy came in, blew your servers up. They were in the basement. Water came in, earthquake came in, something happened. You know, we've got to be able to bring the systems up, right? Especially the ones that are business critical, franchise critical, FC or BC, business critical or franchise critical applications. They will all have a secondary production for disaster recovery. Everybody clear? Any questions on the different environments? How you start from local, go to dev, go to ISTQA, go to UAT, and then to production? Everybody clear?
Yes.
All right. So now let's talk about the different cycles and the different types of testing. So the first one, of course, is your white box testing, also known as unit testing, right? So white box testing is the method of software testing that tests the backend functionalities of the code. It is there to validate the internal structures or the workings of the code, as well as the backend interfaces, right? Unit testing is conducted in the local environment of the actual developer's machine or the coder's machine. Got it? And who's doing white box? The developers themselves. Clear?
Yeah.
All right. After that, the other type of testing is called black box testing, aka functional testing. So black box testing is the method of software testing that tests the functionality of an application as opposed to its internal structures. So basically what we're doing is we are validating our inputs against our expected outputs. Why is it black box? Because if the test case does not pass, for example, if I was to enter the right user ID and the right password into my mobile application for my banking website, what is the output I'm expecting?
At login.
You should be seeing your account summary page, right?
Yeah.
Your account landing page. Everybody agree?
Yes.
So that was your input, correct user ID, correct password, and the expected output was your account summary page, correct?
Yes.
And if I entered that correct user ID, correct password, and I see my account summary page, then my test case has
Pass.
passed. If I enter my right user ID, right password, and I do not get my account summary page, I am redirected back to the login page. Did my test case pass or fail?
You failed.
It failed. Everybody agree? Why did it fail? Because you did not meet your expected
Outcome.
outcome or output. Agree?
Yeah.
But do you know the root cause of the failure? Why this test case is failing?
No.
No. That is why it is called a black box, because there can be many, many different reasons for failure. You understand? And you do not know that because you are not doing unit testing. You are only doing functional testing. You will have to raise a defect. That defect will be assigned back to the developer. The developer will then do his investigation and he will try to identify what is the problem, right? Everybody clear? Yes?
Yeah.
All right. So now let's talk about the different cycles of testing, right? So we talked about the types of testing, which was white box versus black box, unit testing versus functional testing, right? So now let's talk about the different cycles of testing. So the very first cycle is integrated unit testing, also known as DIT or UIT. DIT or UIT. All right. This is the process to obtain confirmation that the system meets mutually agreed upon requirements before the system can be promoted to the IST or QA environment for IST or QA testing. Got it? This level of testing is, of course, being performed by the developers developing the code, as well as the BA and the tech lead. They're all verifying that the major functionalities of the application are working as expected and the application is stable. Of course, this testing is being performed in the development integrated environment, thus also known as DIT, development integrated testing. Any questions on unit integrated testing, development integrated testing, or integrated unit testing? Same name, same cycle. Questions? No questions? All right. The next one is your actual system integrated testing or your IST, integrated system testing, also known as QA.
Wait.
Excuse me. Sorry, guys. I'm getting some sneezing going on. So QA IST SIT is basically a process to obtain confirmation that the system meets mutually agreed upon requirements before the system can be promoted to the UAT environment for UAT testing, right? The final milestone of the IST or QA testing is to get the sign off from the IST manager or QA manager. Everybody clear?
Yes.
Okay. So once you get the QA to sign off, now you promote the code to the final level of testing, which is
User
QA,
acceptance.
user acceptance testing. Again, process to obtain mutually confirmed confirmation that the system meets mutually agreed upon requirements. It's always based on the requirements. Always and always based on the requirements before the system can be released to the production environment or go live. The final milestone of the testing cycle is, of course, to get the sign off not only from the UAT manager, but also the business stakeholders or the business owner that is doing the testing. Any questions on UAT? So DIT, IST, QA, and then comes UAT. Everybody clear? The different levels of testing. And we already talked about why we have these different levels of testing, right? The earlier we find these issues, the more time we have to resolve them, right? And remember, DIT is development testing, and we don't share the development testing results with everybody, right? Yes, everybody good? All right, so now let's talk about test cases and test scripts. When we are going to be doing the walkthroughs next week, we will actually be looking at the test scripts and the test cases. They're part of the walkthrough next week. Test cases are basically built around the specifications and the requirements. Test cases will include what we call a test script. Test script basically contains the detailed steps of how you would be conducting a successful test case. Test cases can be testing both the functional as well as non-functional aspects of the application. Any questions? So we're going to be walk through the test strategy and test plan next week. You're going to see the test cases are embedded in there. Okay. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about defects. So once these testing teams start executing their test scripts, when a test case fails, it results in a defect or bug in the application. Everybody clear? So when the testing team is logging these defects or these bugs, we have different attributes or elements for every bug. And the key ones are you have a defect classification, you have a defect severity, and you have a defect priority. What are these? Classifications basically is a grouping or a bucketing of certain defects. Classification basically shows you the kind of severity and impact of the defect. So the highest classification of a defect is blocker, then you have criticals, then majors, then you can have minors and cosmetic defects, okay? Severity refers to how the defect is impacting. So of course, the top two defects, being a blocker or a critical, have a SEV1 impact. Severity meaning is very high. So SEV1 is a high severity item. All right. And since it's a high severity item, the priority, in other words, how fast we need to provide a fix for this issue, will of course be high. So priority refers to how fast we need to provide a fix or how fast business is looking for a fix from the development side. Everybody clear? So
Yes.
blockers and criticals are SEV1 defects. They have a high priority of fixing. Majors are SEV2, which have a medium priority. Minors and cosmetics are like SEV3 categories and have a low priority of fixing. Okay. So if you had bunch of these defects open, of course, you would go for the blockers before the criticals before the majors before the minors, and the minors before the cosmetics. You cannot actually go live if you have these top two categories open. So if you have blocker defects open or critical defects open, UAT will typically not give you a sign off. If they want to give you a sign off, they will have to reduce the severity of the defect, because you should not be going live with blocker or critical defects. Understood? Everybody clear? All right. The next thing here is web services. So as part of our testing, we will also be testing the web services functionality. So web service is nothing but a software systems which is designed to support system-to-system interaction over a network. It is used when one system requires data or information from another system. And of course, system integration will be involved. And if system integration is involved, then we need to validate that integration also, right? We need to make sure that that data is coming out correctly. So any type of database testing or backend testing will include the web services. Clear? Any questions? All right. And the last thing here is the minutes of the meeting. So minutes of the meeting is a primary task of a BA, right? So every time you meet business, you go into a meeting, you should be taking the minutes of that meeting. And the minutes of the meeting will basically describe the events of the meeting. It will have the list of all the attendees. It should also list the people that were not able to attend. So it should have both. It will have the statements of issues that were discussed by the participants during the meeting, as well as all the related responses and decisions for the issues. In other words, the outcome of the meeting. Everybody clear? You can go into Word document and you can actually look for any template for business minutes, and they will give you a bunch of different templates. You can use whichever one you like. Any questions on the minutes?
No.
So this is why I keep pushing you to take good notes, because if you wind up giving the minutes, your minutes can't be shallow. Everybody clear? Okay, congratulations. That ends your theory, guys. All done. How does everybody feel? Ready to start revising and going through the thing and getting your job? The
Yes,
fourth
sir.
job comes assessment. So this is the final set of slides. All right. And these will include the assessment that Rajni sir will also be doing with you guys. Okay. So as part of your final homework assignment, which is going to be due next week, we will need to create basically a use case diagram, an individual process flow diagram, a individual textual use case. Okay. And there are multiple use cases here. So you guys can pick and choose which use case you guys want to work on. Okay. So let's go down the list and let's get the names assigned here. There's not many of you. There's only 4 of you. So we'll start off with Ozair. Ozair, what's your email ID? Ozair, you're talking on mute.
Yes, sir. Sorry. Ozair, Ozair. Yes,
That's
sir.
you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Uzair, pick your poison. 1 through 14.
Which one is the easy one? I don't
You ask
know.
me, I'm going to give you 4 of them. They're all easy. Should all be easy for you. This is for eBay application. Have you used eBay before?
Yes, sir.
Then all should be easy. Pick one.
Create an account?
All right. Do you have already an account?
No.
All right. If you don't have an account, then okay, good. Because otherwise it's going to be hard for you to, do this and document it.
Okay. As this is one is the create an auction. Sorry.
You want
Create
to
an
do
account.
create an auction?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Create an auction. Number 4.
Number create an auction is number 2.
Oh, sorry. Control Z. So you want to do create an account or do you want to do create an auction? Which one you like? Whichever
Anyone
one.
like yeah,
Create
create
an
an
account?
auction.
Okay, that's fine. We'll give you create an account. No big deal. All right. Rahman, which one? Oh, first, before you go there, what's your email?
KRSUFI@gmail.
That one?
Yes, sir.
You look very familiar. Where do you stay?
Long Island, New York.
Yeah, okay. Look very familiar, like I've met you before. All right, Rahman, which one?
Mm, let's see. You, sir, you give. I mean, I don't mind.
No, pick. Have you used eBay before?
Sorry? No, I did not.
Okay, so the first thing you'll need to do is you'll need to create an account. Okay.
Okay.
After you've created an account,
Mm-hmm.
you can then, or you can even take this one, search for an item. This is not bad.
Okay.
This you
Okay.
don't need an account for, right? You can do this as an unregistered user, right?
Sure.
Okay. Samraksha, email.
Yeah, yes, AM.
That's AM.
AO. Yeah, this one. First one.
Sure. Come on, select. All right. Which one, Samraksha?
No idea. It might be create an auction.
Create an auction.
Okay.
Bid on an auction, create an auction. Okay. Gotcha. And last but not least, Sayed sir.
I'll do
No, email first.
A.Syed.
A.Syed.
Mm-hmm.
This one.
Mm-hmm.
Ashraf.
Yes.
Ashraf. Gotcha.
And I'll add an item to my watch list.
Add an item to your watch list. Got it. All right. So there's only 4 of you. You're only going to be assigned 4 use cases to work on, right? It's a small class, this one. So let's talk about the document. So the document you're going to be using is this document right here. You see sample use case document, right? So let me see if I can bring that document. I can show you what it looks like. Let's see, is this the one? I've got a bunch of these running around. Okay, this is not a completed one. One second. Yeah. All right, so this is what it looks like, right? So basically, this is the template. You can take it and you will, fill out the information. So here are all the different attributes. You have the use case ID, the use case name, right? So this is UC3, bidding on an auction. Description, this use case basically describes, this out of the way so you can see. This use case basically describes the process of a user bidding on an auction. Who are the actors? The registered user, eBay, buyer. What are the preconditions? User should have a registered account. User should be entitled. Well, this is the original one that you're going to see. And then you have your post conditions. You have your basic flow, which you're going to be filling out, right? Everybody remember the basic flow? User does this, system does this, user does this, system does this, user does this, system does this. So you got to be detailed in your description of the basic flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then after the basic flow will come the alternative flows. So, any diamonds you put in your process flow, that will have alternative flows, right? Remember, diamond has one basic and one alternative, right? In other words, I gave you the example of entering the user ID and the password and the system validating it, right? In the basic flow, the validation will what?
Pass or fail.
How can it pass or fail?
By
Pick
logging.
one.
Yeah, I mean like incorrect password, so it will fail.
Ore yaar, basic flow of login is validation will what?
Verify system will
Correctly
Pass.
pass. Yeah, pass.
And the alternative flow is validation will
Fail.
fail.
Okay, yeah.
How can it be pass and fail on the same? Do you do the same thing on both cases?
No.
Then you have to document both, right? What happens if it passes? What happens if it fails? Don't you have to document both these?
Yes.
So which one will go under the basic flow?
The pass one.
And which one will go under the alternative flow?
The fail one.
If you apply for a credit card, what are the two outcomes?
It get approved or rejected.
Which one is the basic flow?
Approved is the basic.
And which is the alternative flow?
Fail.
You
Decline.
take an exam. What are the two outcomes?
Yeah, pass and fail.
No. You can get an A, you can get a B, you can get a C, you can get a D, you can get a
Fail.
F. What's the basic?
A.
A. Very good. Okay. What are the alternatives? What are the alternatives?
B, C.
F. F.
B, C, D, F. They're all alternatives, right?
Yes.
You understand? You guys understand?
Yes, I
There can only be one basic. All the other ones will be
Alternative.
alternative. You enter the right user ID, the right password, validation passes. That is the
basic.
basic. If the user ID and password was incorrect, that is a
Fail. Alternative.
you are trying to log in with an locked account. This is what?
Alternate.
You are trying to log in with a disabled account.
So an alternate, yeah.
You are trying to log in with an account that doesn't exist.
Also an alternative.
Also an alternative. You understand?
Yeah.
Right? You're trying to log in when your phone is on aeroplane mode. What flow?
Alternative.
Alternative, right? You're trying to log in when you have no service.
Again alternative.
Again alternative, but the result will be exactly the same. If you put it on aeroplane mode, it can't get data or Wi-Fi connection, right? And you get a message saying, please check your Wi-Fi and data connection, right?
Yes, sir.
If you're logging in when there is no service in the phone, do you think you're going to get a different message? No, the message will be identical, but the scenarios were different, right?
No, sir.
Right? Everybody clear?
Yes, sir.
And this one actually even has an exception flow. For example, not having Wi-Fi service is an exception, okay? That's not expected. You understand? You understand the difference between alternative flow versus exception? For example, remember you were trying to log in with your user ID and password, right? So the basic flow was user ID password good. The alternative flow is user ID password
Failed. Yeah.
bad.
Bad, yeah.
What happens if the database connection fails? Can you validate the user ID password if the database connection fails?
No.
But what kind of a flow is it?
Exceptional flow, yeah.
That is the exception. Because In the first two cases, user ID good, user ID bad, the validation did occur. You understand? But in the third scenario, the exception, did the validation occur?
Exceptional flow, yeah.
The validation did not occur. Everybody understand?
Yes.
Right? That is an exception happening. Like you come into the bedroom, you remember our light switch?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So you can turn the light switch on and the lights go on, correct? You can turn the light switch on and the lights may not go on. You understand? So if the bulb is bad, that was an alternative course. The wire is not correct. What if there was no electricity in the house?
Yeah, exceptional flow.
That's an exception, right? Why the hell is there no electricity in the house? How can I test something? You understand? You go, you sit inside your car and you try to turn your car on and you realize there's no engine inside the damn car. What kind of flow is that? What kind of flow? Oh God. If there's no damn engine in the car,
Basic
is
flow.
that what you're expecting? It's an exception, right? Somebody forgot to install the damn engine in your car. You think you can drive it?
No,
Are you expecting there to be no engine?
no, definitely not. Yeah.
But if there was an engine and you went to try to start the car and the car is not starting, that is a alternative
Yeah.
source, right?
Yeah.
You open the hood and you see no battery installed there. Is that an alternative or exception?
Exceptional.
That is an exception. Why the hell is the battery not there? There's no gas in the car. Exception again, right? The system has to be fully set up. Then you can test it. You understand? The battery is there, the gas is in the car, you are cranking the car and the car is not starting. This is a alternative course.
flow.
Got it? If you cranked it and the car started, that was a basic flow.
Basic flow.
You're driving on the road, you step on the brakes, the car brakes don't work. This is a alternative course. If the brakes are not installed in the car, then
Exception.
exception. Why the hell were they not there, right?
Yeah.
Ask yourself. You
Some of them
understand?
I got in 2019, and they just
Got in
some-
2019?
but they all
What do you
went
mean
through
you
the
got
fucking fall in this
2019?
1 year. Some of them I got in December 2019. Some of them I got in 2020.
In 2 days.
Yeah.
Syed, go on mute.
So sorry.
Lord, some I got in 19, some I like, what the hell is he talking about? All right.
I have so many tickets. I got tickets that I got in 2019, and the dates are this year.
Oh my God. All right. Good luck with that.
I can't believe it.
All right. So this diagram is what we call what diagram? What diagram is this? What diagram has ovals, solid lines, and a pretty looking actor?
Use case diagram.
Correct. Use case diagram. And how many use cases do you see in this diagram?
4 use case.
4 use cases. So yours will be very similar, right? Because your class has been assigned how many use cases? Let's see. You guys are only assigned 4, right?
4.
1, 2, 3. 3? 4. 4.
4.
You are also going to have 4 ovals, right? One will say search for an item. One will say create an auction. One will say create an account. The last one will say
Add item
add
to the
an
wish
item
list.
to the
Watch
list.
list. That's wish list, like same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, actually, wish list is different. Wish list is Amazon function. eBay doesn't have that. Watch list is you're watching the
Oh,
auction.
yeah, and it shows you the price going up and down.
Yes. Any
Got it.
changes, like if you bid on it, anything like that, if it's ending, it'll give you messages and stuff. Wish list is things you would like to buy for future. And the last diagram here is what
Oh,
diagram is this?
Sally, just a quick question. You know the little speaker on the bottom right of your computer? The little speaker icon?
Yeah.
Can you click on that? And I think you're going in the red when you speak.
No, that's for the speaker from your side, not mine.
Oh, yeah, because yours, I don't know, yours got really loud again.
Don't worry. We're dropping in about 5 minutes, so
Oh,
just
okay.
bear me. Okay. So this is the last diagram, which is the what? What diagram is this? Come on, guys, we just did this, yeah. Come on. Process flow diagram,
Flow
right?
diagram.
Activity diagram, right?
Yes.
So you will have to create your own diagrams, right? So, excuse me, Rahman, your process flow diagram will be for which process? Rahman has left the building.
Search for item.
Correct. And your individual textual use case will be for which use case?
Individual text case. Searching.
Search for an item. So these two are for your individual assignment. Got it?
Yes.
But your use case diagram for all of you will be the same. You got it? Because the use case diagram is for the system. You got it? And you guys have been assigned 4 functions in the system. Got it?
Yes.
So everybody's use case diagram should be identical, but everybody's process flow diagram and textual use cases will be for their individual processes. Rahman is search for an item. Samraksha is creating an auction. Ozair is creating an account. Syed will be doing it for adding an item to his watch list. Everybody clear? So number 2 and number 3 will be individual for everybody. But number 1 is common. Everybody clear?
Sir, I just want to ask, like, how is this going to be common, like use case diagram? Because we are doing some different activities.
The use, I just explained it, Ozair. The use case diagram is for the entire eBay application.
So we have to just like make this similar to this or just like this?
You have to make just with this, but the ones that were assigned to your class. You don't get it?
No, I don't get it because
Yeah,
I've
for
done
God's
it.
sake, man, name the use cases that were assigned to your class.
Okay, so I have to like assign like Rahman also, Samraksha, Sayed also.
No, what
No.
are the 4 use cases assigned for your class? Ozair, name them.
Search for an item,
Okay,
create an auction,
okay,
create an account,
okay.
and add an item for your watch
So how
list.
many is that?
Okay, 4 case diagram. Okay,
Not 4 use case diagram, 4 use cases.
4 use cases here.
How many diagrams?
1 diagram.
1 diagram. You got it?
Yes, got it. Yeah.
Because the diagram represents all the functions in the system. And the process flow is each individual process. You understand?
Okay, got it.
You got it, everybody? I know Zed asked it. He had the nerves to do it. Probably.
Basically,
Maybe guys.
it'll look the same until the second slide, right? For all of us, it'll pretty much.
Oh man, the first slide will be all different. This is all your individual ones.
No, sorry. I meant this. Go down the
You meant the first diagram versus the
first
second
diagram.
diagram.
Yeah. It would
So
look
you're
pretty
not
similar,
saying that,
right?
are you?
Sorry, it would look a little similar, right?
A little similar, yes. You have creating an account. That's one of them.
Okay.
You don't have the buy now, so you will have to remove this one. You'll have to remove this
Search for
one,
auction.
right?
Right.
Yes,
You
sir.
can put search for an item here, bidding on an auction. Did we do bidding on an auction? No, that one is not there either. So you can remove this one also, right?
Yeah.
Plus, remember, it's not the same actors. There's only one actor here. Each one of you has different actors. For example, Rahman has how many actors?
4.
Who are the four can do his use case? What's GRSB?
First is a guest,
Uh-huh.
registered,
Uh-huh.
registered, and
Not
the last.
system. Not system. Jose, go back to your class notes for where you created your process, your use case diagram. Who are the other last two actors? Seller and a buyer, buddy.
Yes, sir. Yes, seller and buyer. Got it. Yeah.
Right? Samraksha, who are your guys?
Seller and register user.
Registered user, right? The RU. Jose, who's the
Sir.
only one for you?
Guest.
Which is a unregistered user also, right?
Yes, sir.
And Sayed, you get 3. Who are your 3 actors? Wasn't paying attention.
I was. I'm sorry.
All right, you're linked in with these other people, they can help you.
Yes.
It's registered user, seller, and buyer, Hero.
Oh, I didn't see the U, so it confused me.
What do you mean?
It's
Why
the
would there be a U? Oh, registered user, yes. In some cases it's an R, in some cases it's RU.
yeah. That's sorry. That's why I was a little confused.
Okay. Everybody clear?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to send this email. Homework due next week. We're going to do the walkthroughs and we're going to do all the homework checks. So whoever got homeworks in, we're doing all the checks next week. So be ready for that. All right.
Awesome.
All right. If nothing else, have a good evening. We will see you next week.
Yes.
Hopefully you'll be more used to the Ramzan.
Sorry, sir, one more question. Like in
Yeah,
next
go
week, we have 2 more classes or just on Saturday class?
You will have at least 2 more classes next week.
Okay.
All right. Then we are done.
Right.
All right. Okay. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you.
You too.
All right. I'll send this email right now. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.